What's up, guys? It has been with 2020 election predictions, and I know I've taken a long break, but I want to dive right into the special election in Georgia. I'm gonna cover more of the Senate as a whole in future videos, kind of what I think of the results. I think that the Republicans did a lot better than kind of the mainstream media thought, especially in races like Maine and North Carolina. I do think Georgia was a little bit of a surprise. I think that the Democrats, especially in the Perdue Ossoff race, I think people thought that Perdue was going to win outright. He didn't, so it is going to go to a runoff. But let me kind of cover what I think of this race. I have a pretty good idea of who I think is going to win. So definitely stay tuned for that. So right now, where we are, the Republicans have 50 seats and the Democrats have 48 seats. And now we can call Joe Biden the president-elect. The electoral college just voted him in. So Kamala Harris is going to be the vice president. So if the Democrats do win both these seats, then the Democrats are going to have control of the Senate because Kamala Harris can break this tie. So the stakes are very, very high. Control of the Senate. And so that's why just millions upon millions of dollars being poured into this race. And I mean, you see it all over Twitter, all over the news coverage. The entire country is looking at Georgia, and you see volunteers from California and New York and Texas. They're all coming into Georgia because they know how much control of the Senate matters. So briefly, just kind of looking at the predicted numbers right now. The overall people where people are putting their money, they're putting money on the Republicans, and they have a lot more confidence in in David Perdue to win, rather than Kelly Wolford. So that's kind of where the people are putting their money. And just to kind of briefly go over the polls, and I want to have a huge caveat to the polls. So even though that I had a fairly good prediction of the election, I still did not realize how off the polls were going to be. And given I did kind of base my predictions on a lot of factors, and I relied on the polls a lot less than other people. That being said, I think in a special election, I'm going to spend very little time on these polls. I don't think these polls right now matter at all. And I do think it's very interesting that actually the Democrats are doing better after the election happened. This is very surprising to me. And that's why I don't think we should put a lot of say into the polls. I remember a lot of people in my comments were saying, "Oh, you don't listen to the polls enough." Well, I think I can be kind of proven right, and that kind of my own intuition and kind of looking at fundraising numbers, voter registration numbers was definitely a more accurate indicator. So okay, just kind of starting out my personal opinions of this race. I think that the Republicans are going to win, and I think that the Republicans actually could win big. I think that David Perdue is going to win the state by a lean margin. And so what I'm actually thinking is between 4 and 5 points, and I actually feel fairly confident about that. If we look at the results in the election, he won by nearly 2 points. So he only need zero point 0.3 percentage points to get over kind of the 50% limit to kind of win the state outright. And he outperformed President Trump by 2 percentage points, because I mean Trump only lost this state. I mean it was definitely an upset. This is one state where I was wrong. One of two states in the presidential level that I got wrong. I flipped North Carolina and Georgia. But Biden did very, very narrowly win this state. But David Perdue outperformed President Trump by 2 points. So in 2016, we didn't see any states go for a different party on the Senate and presidential level, but we're definitely seeing multiple in the 2020 race. I mean, up in Maine is one example, and I think we're going to see it with both Senate races in Georgia. So I think that David Perdue is going to get probably close to 52, maybe even 53%. And there's only two candidates. So the libertarian candidate here, Hazel, He is not going to be on the runoff because it's only the top two people. And I would think that the Libertarian candidate, that most of these votes are actually going to go to David Perdue, just kind of thinking of the ideology. Um, and so I think this is definitely going to help Purdue. The second thing to look out for is I definitely think that there's going to be lower voter turnout. So in the 2020 presidential election, and also kind of down ballot on the Senate elections, because I mean, typically people vote for Senate and president, and that actually we saw in this past election that actually more people voted in the down ballot races, which I think is pretty interesting. I think that's a lot due kind of to the never Trump Republicans who kind of stomach voting for Trump, but like voted for the Republicans on the House level, and that's why that the House GOP they actually picked up seats, which surprised a lot of people. But I think in this race is going to be on January 5th, I believe. I want to make sure I have that right. But I definitely think that there's going to be lower voter turnout. I think now that Joe Biden has won, I do think there's going to be more Republicans energized to turn out. I don't think that the Democrats have as much incentive. I think kind of Trump is just such a polarizing figure. If you hate him, you're going to try to vote him out. But now that he's already voted out, I don't think maybe some Democrats who are not as kind of involved in politics. Um, I don't know if they're going to go turn out on a Tuesday night. I mean, I think people already assume that voter turnout's going to be lower. I mean, I think this is pretty intuitive. And if we kind of look at the past, lower voter turnout always helps the Republicans, especially in a state like Georgia. And we've seen in the past that Republicans do extraordinarily well in runoffs. So if we look back at 2008 in the state of Georgia, I mean, this is just striking. So the Republican candidate for Senate, Saxby Chambliss, he came very, very close to winning it outright. So he got 49.8, which if we look at the Perdue election, he's just only 0.1 percentage off. But if we look at the special election, which was held on December 2nd, the runoff, we can see that the Republican won by 15 percentage points. I do not think it's going to be this great because I do think that voter turnout is going to be higher. We can see here that the runoff numbers were significantly lower. I think they're definitely going to be higher. So that's the first reason why I think it's going to be closer. And the second reason is just because I think that we're so polarized. And I think that like there's going to be less crossover voters. So I'm sure here you had some Obama voters who also voted for the Republican, maybe just to kind of keep him in check. At this point, I think there was like 59 or 60 Democrats, so it was a super majority of Democrats in the Senate. And so I think that some people wanted a check on that, and I do think that we might see some Biden voters kind of in the suburbs of Atlanta who might want divided government. People who aren't big Trump fans, but maybe might be more conservative. And so I definitely do think that we're going to see some Purdue voters. But I mean, I think this is very, very striking. The fact that the difference. So there's a 3 percentage point difference in the general election, but in the runoff there was a 15% difference. So that's a 12-point shift. I mean, if there were a 12-point shift here, obviously the Republicans would win by 12 or 13 points or 14 points actually. I don't think it's going to be this striking, but I mean, I think with the general election, we do kind of see some similarities. In 2008, there was a very popular Democratic candidate, Barack Obama. He actually kind of we can actually say he won in a near landslide. He didn't win Georgia. But we saw that Biden, he won the most votes out of any presidential candidate in history, and it's definitely kind of helped down ballot people. I think not having Biden on the ballot is actually going to hurt the Democratic Senate candidates. So Moving kind of on to the special E election, so we can see that Perdue won by nearly 2 points, or I mean, he didn't win, but he got 2 percentage points more votes. If we look at the special Senate election, this was a little bit more interesting because um, there was a bunch of different candidates. So we can see that Doug Collins tried to primary Kelly Wolford, and it's fairly split. Well, the Democrats definitely kind of had one front runner. If we add up all the Republican and Democratic candidates, the Republicans got 49%, and the Democrats got 48. So again, on the Senate level, the Republicans outperformed President Trump, which I think should bode well for the Senate candidates in the election. I don't think that Kelly Wolford is going to do as well as David Perdue. She was an appointee; she wasn't elected, and I like. And a lot of people wanted Doug Collins to be the appointed. The reason why Brian Kemp did this was because he wanted to kind of appeal more to suburban women who he thought that the GOP were losing. Um, but she ended up winning the primary, which was a little bit surprising to me. But the NRSC, the National Republican Senatorial Committee, poured a lot of money to support her. And I mean, Doug Collins didn't have a great apparatus just because he was a little bit of an outsider. And Kelly Wolford has voted with President Trump 100% of the time, so she's really trying to do that. But like we could definitely see that Doug Collins is campaigning for Wolford, and so is everyone. So the Republicans are definitely kind of trying to lump these two races together because I mean they definitely says David Perdue is more popular, but if they can get kind of Kelly Wolford lumped in there too, because she isn't as appealing as a candidate. I mean, she was never elected, and also she kind of had the insider trading scandal. Now the reason why I was a little bit unsure about this race at first is because there was talk at the beginning of Republicans boycotting this race and either not turning out to vote or writing in Trump instead of voting for the Republicans. And I really thought that this was going to be a big factor, but because there was kind of the Stop the Steal rally where Republicans turned out, and two of Trump's attorneys actually said if Georgia doesn't get its election system figured out, then people should not come out and vote for the runoff because it could be rigged again. I think President Trump has kind of downplayed this rhetoric about boycotting the election. He held a rally in Georgia, kind of explaining that if you want to, if you want my legacy to stay, then you need to vote. And I think this is going to be helpful, definitely. But I think kind of with this whole thing about the voter fraud and David Perdue and Kelly Wolford kind of being on a tightrope, kind of like playing this very fine line of like not trying to disagree with President Trump, but also not trying to put too much doubt on the Georgia election system so that people don't vote. So it's this very kind of fine line that they have to play, which is definitely hard, but I think they're doing an okay job at it. And if they don't mess it up too much, I mean, I think they have the structural advantage. Being a runoff with voter turnout being lower, I think this is going to help them. And then also just having Biden win on the presidential level, I think you're going to see some suburban Biden voters crossover and vote for the Republican, because we did even see in the general election that the Republicans on the Senate level did better than President Trump. The last thing that I want to focus on too, which makes me put a little bit more doubt on this race, is that the Democrats are out fundraising the Republicans by a lot, but you can see that a lot of their money is coming from out of state, while the Republicans are actually doing a little better in state. So I don't think that the fundraising is going to matter that much. I mean, I don't think a lot of people are going to make their minds based on ads, and you can see that the ad rates are skyrocketing. If you were smart, you would have invested in a Georgia TV company. I think I've saw that the ad rates are going to like 15 to 20 to 30 times more expensive than the Norway do, which is just incredible. But I don't think it's going to have that much of an effect. So my final predictions for this race, I think that David Perdue is going to win between 4 or 5 or even 6 points, but probably 4 or 5. And I think Kelly Wolfler it's going to be between like 1 and 3 points. So it's going to be between a tilt and a lean margin. So I do think that the Republicans are going to hold the Senate with 52 seats, while the Democrats have 46, plus the 2 independents that caucus with the Democrats to make it 48. So I really hope you like this video. I know this is kind of long, but please subscribe, and I'm going to keep on going with my channel. So see you later in a future video.